Hello everyone, and welcome to 3x the Gamer. Now that 2017 is over with and we've started 2018, I thought it only fitting that we have a look back at the previous year and give a quick list of my top 5 video games, movies, and also look into TV series and music of the year as well. Now before we start, just a reminder, this is just my opinion. Everyone has different tastes and likes and dislikes, and everyone's list is going to differ from other people's. Also, this is just from what I've actually played throughout the year. There's tons of games I haven't had a chance to pick up and play, especially PS4 wise, because I don't own one. So there's many games on this list that could actually be other games that I would just not have played, so I can't give an opinion when that's the case. There's also others that, while I have played, I haven't played enough to form a full overall opinion. But anyway, let's get started, and I think as we're a gaming channel, we'll start with video games. So I'm going to break this down into 2 categories. First, we go as my overall favourite games, but then I'd also like to go on a separate list just for visuals as well, because I think some games this year, while they're not necessarily the best in terms of overall game, visually they're absolutely stunning. So anyway, we'll start off with my personal 5 top games of the year. Number 5, for me, is Cuphead. It's a great retro-inspired game that reminds us of what it used to be like in the old days, really, of gaming, where games are quite difficult. This day and age, I find games are quite easy for the most part. Certainly playing back on Super Mario World has reminded me of how it used to be to play games much more difficult. Cuphead has brought this back. I think for me, I would have preferred if it did have more of the platform style stages, but it's interesting that the game decided to mainly focus on bosses. Visually, the graphics are great, taken from the style of old animation. I think that was a really nice touch, and it really paid off, and I think it resonated with a lot of people because it did very well in terms of number of sales, I believe. Number 4, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. For me, this was a major surprise. When I first heard about this, I rolled my eyes and thought, why? Rabbits are annoying. Why do we want to see those with a Mario, within a Mario game? I was really surprised when I picked it up and liked it a great deal. So much so that it's slotted in number 4 of my list. Now, I will just mention that this is games that are brand new for this year, so I'm not including any re-releases that are out on the Switch. Otherwise, this list would be slightly different, I feel. But yeah, Mario plus Rabbids, nice simplistic design style, gameplay, nice fun, easy to get into, but has still got room for some reasonable strategies to take place in the game. So for me, number 4 definitely goes into Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Number 3 on my list is Sonic Mania. Now this for me was a great combination of what used to make Sonic so great while bringing in some new elements to it, mainly in the form of new levels. I think they did a fantastic job using retro assets and making new assets that still look retro, and it really brought back to me why I found Sonic so good in the old days. Sonic for me in its current form has gotten very stale and isn't for me anymore. I know there's plenty of fans still out there, so great that you still enjoy it, but for me it isn't what it once was. So it was great to have Sonic Mania come back and really allow me to have fun in Sonic again. Number 2, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This blew me away when I picked up the Nintendo Switch and was playing this both on the TV and handheld. What a fantastic start to the Nintendo Switch's life cycle, to play a brand new Zelda on it. Everything from the scenery to the sound to how the physics work, it's fantastic. You're in this world and you can do it at your own pace and how you feel like you want to complete the game. Could it have been even better? For me, yes, it could have been. I think combining this with traditional dungeons would have made for an even better game. I do feel it was lacking in terms of number of different enemies in the game, and as I say, the dungeon element. But it was still a fantastic game and one of the best Zeldas in my opinion. Number 1, for me, it has to be Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey to me just encapsulates pure fun, which is what a game really should be. I mean, yes, I love playing for the storylines of games. One of my favourite aspects are complex storylines, but it's to bring it back to old school, but with fresh ideas, and just allow you to have pure simplistic fun. Again, it's great that you can play on the TV and handheld. For me this year, I think the main thing for me, it's almost felt like going back to my childhood with Nintendo bringing all these classic games back, and even going back to Cuphead as well. That's still, while it's a new, fresh take on it, still very much a retro game. So for me, 2017, summing it up in a word, is, well, we go with 2 words: retro nostalgic. That's how I felt this year. And also for Christmas, getting a Super Nintendo Classic Mini, even more so. I need to play a little bit because obviously I've only had it a few days, but just reminds me of what games used to be in the old days. And as I say, I still love the storylines and all that of today's games. Witcher 3, my favourite game of all time probably, because I love the universe building from that. And games like Bioshock, I love the narratives in those. But still, when it gets down to it, fun gameplay goes a very long way. Super Mario Odyssey for me is my game of the year. However, let's go through a quick visual list, because for me it's a slight different list to overall best games of the year. So we'll just run through this very quickly. Number 5 for me is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. As I mentioned briefly earlier, the game looks amazing. To think as well that this can be run on basically a tablet, is incredible. The detail. Yes, it's not up to, Xbox One, Xbox One X and hardcore PC graphics. But what it does very well. Simplistic style, but to still a nice level of detail. And the shells and the cell shaded rendering really works wonders on this game. Number 4 for me is Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, I didn't include this in my top games list because I haven't played nowhere near enough to make a full opinion of the game. However, I can tell from what I have played that it's absolutely gorgeous visually. I'm playing it. I've seen it on the Xbox One X. And it looks absolutely stunning. The lighting and seeing the pyramids in the distance and all that kind of stuff. It's just absolutely beautiful. That's all you can really say for it. However, number 3 for me is Super Mario Odyssey. Yes, it's nowhere near as technically beautiful as Assassin's Creed Origins, but with the restraints I've got of the system, the lovely, beautifully vibrant, simple graphic style that still looks gorgeous in its own right. Yes, not high photorealistic detail, but nice cartoony, gorgeous detail. Number 2 for me goes Cuphead, because to make a game look like it's hand drawn has to be incredibly difficult, and I take my hat off to those guys at the studio to make a game look like you're watching an old school cartoon. I've never seen a game pull off hand drawn graphics so well as Cuphead has. Number 1 for me is Star Wars Battlefront 2. Yes, you might have your gripes with the overall game, especially with the loot boxes and how they were implemented, but visually it's a masterpiece. Never have I played a game that made me feel like I was in a movie as much as this does, just because it is Star Wars down to the T. The details, the minute details are all there, and it's just, you are transported into the Star Wars universe when you play Star Wars Battlefront 2, and I think they did a fantastic job replicating this elements of the Star Wars films. So whatever problems with the games, graphically there's no faults with it. Now, I want to have a couple of honourable mentions of games. For me, Axiom Verge, I absolutely loved that game this year. Now, I didn't include it in my list because it is fair few years old. However, the Nintendo Switch version was released this year, so that version is a 2017 game, and I absolutely loved it. But I'm not going to include it in my overall list, just because it isn't technically a 2017 game. And again, Shovel Knight is another one where it has come out as a 2017 Switch version, but it is an older game, so I'm not including it on my list, but I still love that game. And it's definitely a game that anybody who likes side-scrolling platformers should pick up. My last mention is for Xenoblade Chronicles. Now, this potentially could have made the top 5 list, but I've only played it for about 6 or 7 hours, so I haven't got into it enough to give my full opinion. But from what I have played, I'm already really enjoying it, and everything about it is great so far, you know, apart from the voice acting, but I am getting used to it. You know, visually it's great, and it is just a very fun RPG to play. But as I say, I haven't had enough hands-on with it to give a full opinion on the game. But potentially it could have made my top 5 list of games, just as Assassin's Creed may have. It's hard to say without, you know, playing it more. So that is the games out of the way. So I think now we're going to my top 5 films of 2017. And again, this is only based on what I have watched so far, and there's a few films that I haven't got a chance to see, namely Thor Ragnarok is one that I haven't had a chance to see yet that I really want to watch. So potentially that might have even made the list for all I know. But number 5, I think I'm going to go for Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Now, while it's not as good as the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I did still feel it was a pretty solid film. For me, the Guardians films are the best of the Marvel films. They're fun, entertaining, like most of the Marvel films, but has a bit of heart behind them as well. And it almost is a more of a slightly comedy Star Wars, I guess you could say, in a way. Now, I did like, well, I won't go too much into it because I don't want to spoil it, but I did like the story behind Star-Lord's father. I think that was a nice touch. So while it wasn't as good and wasn't as funny as the first film, I did feel it had more heart than the first film. Number 4 for me is actually one that I'm very surprised about, is King Kong. Now, I think they did a better job on this King Kong than they did with Peter Jackson's King Kong, because it's gone back to what it should be, really, a fun monster movie. It's very much in the vein of the new Godzilla film, but I think it's more fun. It's very much just about seeing big monsters and escaping the island, really, and I think they did a great job. It's not going to win awards for being the most complex of films, but certainly just as a fun movie, I'm putting King Kong in my number 4 position. Number 3, this is one that's divided the internet more than any other film this year, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. For me, you've got more of my thoughts on my spoiler review, but for me, when I watched it, I was undecided originally on how I felt about the film. After thinking about it for a few days and watching it a second time, I could definitely put this in my 3rd spot this year. I very much enjoyed it. Still a couple of small issues, but overall I think it's a very solid film if you look into a few details and think about how they can be used in different ways than what is currently presented in the film itself, and see how it could actually lead on to Episode 9. Most of the fundamental building blocks of Star Wars are present in The Last Jedi, so it is still very much a Star Wars film, but there are bits in it that are unexpected, and for me goes into my number 3 spot of favourite films this year. The number 1 and number 2 was a very difficult one for me to decide on, really, because they're both very good films in very different ways. But in the end, I went with number 2 as Dunkirk. For me, I think Christopher Nolan did a fantastic job on this film. I really felt the tension from the off on this film of our soldiers trying to escape the beach of Dunkirk, and every turn something happens that stops them from getting off. And there's just incredible tension on how it's shot throughout the whole film, and they don't rely on the horrifying, gory nature of war. So they don't go the same route as Saving Private Ryan. They go a very more almost almost more subtle approach, I would say, in a way, to Dunkirk, and I think it really pays off. And it also allows some younger viewers to watch this and hopefully learn a bit about war, really, and why it was such a bad thing, and why I hope we never have to go through that again in human history. Number 1 for me is one that didn't do incredibly well on the box office, unfortunately, even though I definitely feel it should have, is Blade Runner 2049. I went into this not knowing what to expect because I loved the first Blade Runner film. And for them to make a sequel so long after the first one, it's a very, very, very big undertaking. Much like when they revived Star Wars. If you didn't get that style right, then you haven't got a Blade Runner film, just as you wouldn't have had a Star Wars film. Thankfully, they did get the style right. You know, it had the mood of the film correct, it had the visuals of the film, of the original correct. Yes, it was quite long. I didn't mind that because I was just so enthralled in this world that they've created. You know, it is a detective film, it is slow paced, but I like that about it. That is what makes a Blade Runner for me. It isn't all about the action, there's little bits here and there, but it's the world building, it's the visuals of what you're watching, the sound of what you're watching, and the story. It's everything all entwined. And for me, Blade Runner is my film of the year. Now we're going to go over quickly, like we did with the video games, a list of visually stunning films for me, because that list is slightly different. Now, number 5 for me is Dunkirk, because, as I said before, they did a great job of showing the horrors of war without having to use violence. But beyond that, just some of the shots just look naturally beautiful. I love the shots of the planes a lot of the time, and just seeing like smoke from the horizon when the planes are flying across, just the boats out in the open sea. Yeah, just a very beautiful, but more on the naturally occurring beautiful film rather than a spectacle. Number 4 for me probably goes for Beauty and the Beast. Now, there are some problems for me in terms of the visuals, but to me it felt almost like a very, very large scale, opulent musical, theatrical musical. You know, the design of the castle, all the opulence they had there, just looked very, very beautiful to me. I think they did a great job of bringing Beauty and the Beast to a live action. You know, it's not easy to bring these cartoons into a live action setting. The cartoon is still a better film, easily, but visually they did a fantastic job, I think, of translating the cartoon into a live action piece. Number 3 for me is actually King Kong. I love the use of colours, I love the use of how they use the explosions, things like it reflecting in people's sunglasses and all that. I like the design of King Kong himself, and I'm quite fond of the design of the other monsters. I forget their name right now, although they're not the most original of creature designs. But for me, it was mainly the use of colours and explosions in the film, and it's really made me excited to see on how he handles the Metal Gear Solid film that the director is currently creating. Because to me, it almost did feel a bit Metal Gear Solid in its own right, King Kong, and how it tackles the visuals of it. You know, it felt very much like Metal Gear Solid 3. So yeah, it made me very excited for that. Number 2 for me is Blade Runner. As I mentioned before, they perfectly nailed the design of the original film, but also managed to take it in its own slight direction as well, because you've got to remember there is about 30 years, whatever it is, between these two films. So just like real life, you know, 30 years ago we didn't have flat screen TVs everywhere, so there is difference in the way architecture works and differences in technology and all that in real life. So I think it's great that they've still managed to capture this same world while bringing in new elements to make it still seem like it's a natural progression, without completely changing it so much that you no longer recognise this world of Blade Runner. So they did a brilliant job. Number 1 on my list is Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Now, whether or not you consider this a good film, bad film, whether it's one of your best Star Wars, whether it's your very, very worst Star Wars, I think one thing that most of us can agree on is that visually it's absolutely amazing. Now for me, visual wise, it's probably one of the best Star Wars out of all of them. There's certain scenes, I can't really talk about it too much, but there's certain scenes in it that are just absolutely stunning, and they've really recaptured the feel of Star Wars in terms of the visuals while bringing it its own direction, much like The Force Awakens did. I'll just highlight one scene though, for example, because it's in the trailers, is the Planet Crate. It just looks so stunning how the colours of the red underneath the white, how it works with contrast between each other. Just this red scoring on a white surface just looks absolutely stunning when you see it. So yeah, for me, number one spot is definitely Star Wars The Last Jedi. Now I just want to mention a couple of other films I did enjoy this year. I did very much like the Spider-Man Homecoming film. I think they did a good job bringing Spider-Man back. I think they've done a better job than Spider-Man has had done with him for a long time, so good job on that, I believe. And the other one for me is actually Life. Now, I went into that just a film to go and watch, not really knowing what to expect, thinking it was going to be basically a film a bit like Alien, but for younger people. I didn't even realise the age certificate until I went to watch it. And I was very much surprised, because I thought it wasn't going to be a very good film, but I was very entertained by it. Yes, it's basically a mix between Alien and The Thing, but I think they did a great job. I think it was suspenseful in parts, and the ending was quite a nice surprise ending. So yeah, just a quick honourable mention to those two movies. Now, I'm not really one for watching too much random TV, but I do watch some TV series. So I thought I'd quickly run through also my top 5 TV series of this year. For me, number 5 is the new Netflix TV series Dark. Now, I've actually almost finished watching. It's not quite. I'm on the last episode as we speak, but I very much enjoyed it. It's a little bit like Stranger Things, I guess, but only surface level. I think it's obviously a lot, as the title would suggest, is a lot darker tone than Stranger Things. I think it's a very serious film, even though it's dealing with sci-fi. Even though it's dealing with a sci-fi kind of element. But yeah, it's a good mystery sort of drama sci-fi series that it's hard to really talk about until you watch it, because otherwise I could spoil things. So yeah, I think they did a really good job. I'm really enjoying these pieces gradually unraveling, finding out how things are intertwining in a way. Yeah, very, very enjoyable TV series, and I'm hoping they continue into the next series, depending on how obviously this last episode I'm about to watch finishes. Number 4 is for me Better Call Saul Season 3. I think they've continued to do a good job. It's not as good as Breaking Bad, but I think it's a great series in its own right. I've loved seeing more of Saul, seeing how he becomes what he is in Breaking Bad. It has that comedy element to it as well as the seriousness to it, and I like that they've gradually turning more characters from Breaking Bad into the backstory. So I think they did a really good job, and I can't wait for season 4 to air, hopefully in 2018 sometime. I'm assuming they're still carrying on with it. I wouldn't see why not. Number 3 is another new Netflix TV series, is Ozark. Now, it's a little bit like Breaking Bad, but still very much its own TV series in its own right. Now, this follows someone who is laundering money for a Mexican drug gang, and he's doing this to try and save himself. Basically, I don't want to go too much into it because I don't want to spoil it for people. But I was very interested in finding out how the main character and his family were going to make it through the situations that faced them, so they can launder this money like they were supposed to be doing and not get caught by the police. Yeah, I'm very, very, very much looking forward to the next season because I want to see how it continues. They do have those slight shock factor moments like Breaking Bad does, which I can't obviously go into because I don't want to spoil it for people, but there are a few of those moments and it doesn't work out how you think it's going to in certain episodes, which does leave a surprise, which is a great thing. Number 2 for me is Stranger Things Season 2. Now, I think Stranger Things Season 1 is still the better of the 2 seasons. However, I think Stranger Things Season 2 is probably the more fun overall series. It still continues in the same vein as the first series, but brings a lot more elements of like Alien into it, say. I think it just continues the 80s sort of theme, obviously because it's in the 80s, but bringing more elements from other 80s films into this, I feel. I think they did a great job introducing a couple of new characters into it. One of my favourite characters was actually a new character in this, Bob, who's played by Sean Austin, I believe that's his name, who played Samwise Gamgee. I think his character was great, probably favourite in the series I mentioned. So yeah, overall they did a great job continuing Stranger Things into season 2. And I really look forward to season 3. Number 1 for me, as if it could be anything else, Game of Thrones Season 7. Game of Thrones for me has continued to be a fantastic TV series. Originally, I actually probably preferred Walking Dead, but for me Walking Dead has definitely gone by the wayside, whereas Game of Thrones, you could argue it had gone maybe not as good in some respects since they're going on to their own material now. But overall the quality is still there, I find, and it's still a fantastic show. The set pieces are there. Yeah, I loved it. I think they did a great job in season 7, and I can't wait for season 8 to see how it finishes. I've got my own theory how it's going to go, but I won't say it now because it has slight spoilers from season 7. Some of you might not yet have seen it. I'm sure most of you will have, but I don't want to go into that and spoil it for you guys. So season 7 of Game of Thrones is my series of the year. Now I'm quickly going to just run over as well my top 5 albums of the year. Now this is very, very much my opinion because my music taste is not for everyone. I like music in general, but I'm not really into poppy stuff, that's popular. Not because I don't dislike it because it's popular. I just don't like the way most popular music sounds, if you know what I mean. So I'm mostly more of a metalhead. I do like listening to like film scores as well, but most of the stuff I listen to is in the metal genre. And number 5 for me, it's a difficult one. I've put it as Interferum 2 Paths, but I wasn't overly keen on that album either, to be fair. I think they relied too much on trying to make an Interferum album sound like Interferum, if that makes sense, but done it to the expense of actually making a worse album. So I feel they didn't do... It's almost like they made it a standard Interferum album without... It's hard to explain my feelings on it, because it feels like Interferum, but so much so that it actually detracts from it being an Interferum album. Doesn't make sense at all what I'm saying, does it? But yeah, I wasn't too keen on the album, but I've put that as number 5 on my list because I don't know what else could really fit there, to be honest. Number 4 for me is Edguy's Monuments album. Now yes, this is a best of album, but it does also have about 6 or 7 of its own tracks as well, which I think quite great songs actually. They feel a bit more like Advantageous songs than Edguy songs for the most part, but I still think they're very much enjoyable songs, and they did a great job on these songs, and it makes it worthwhile buying the album just for those. Number 3 for me is Leprous Melania album. It's very much Leprous in that it takes a specific style of music, but I wouldn't so much say it turns it on its head, but does elements to it that makes it very, very unique, and not like anything else. So I would say, even though this is very rock and metal as well, it's a lot more poppy in nature than some of the past albums like Cole, for example. I think if you found some of their old stuff maybe too harsher, Melania would maybe suit you more. It's almost, it's like a lighter rock / poppier album, but with its own unique elements that Leprous does. Brings that slight uniqueness to how Leprous approaches music. The number 2 for me is a band called Asira and their album Efference. They made an amazing album with this. If you like bands like Alcest, then I think this would be right up your street. They've got a lot of different elements in this band, but it's one you should definitely check out because they've made a fantastic album. If you like your metal, please give this a go if you've never heard the band. They're very new, but they're quickly gaining ground. Please go and listen to them if you like your metal. I will leave a link to them below. Give them a listen. Number 1 for me is the return of Wintersun and their album The Forest Seasons. Now I know any of you out there who are familiar with Wintersun, I know there's been, all talk about the crowdfunding, whether it's something they should have done. Let's leave all that aside. For me, it's fine, but let's leave all that aside and just focus on what the album is. Yes, you could say it's a little bit repetitive in times, perhaps, but I think still overall they've done a great job at bringing back Wintersun. Hopefully they can, hopefully they continue it, bring out another album, get the crowdfunding stuff done, and bring out Time 2. I can't wait to hear that album. But so far, Forest Seasons, what we've got, done a great job. For me, the favourite song on that is the Winter track. That's probably up there as one of the best Wintersun songs actually out so far for me. So yeah, great album, I think. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Music is very, very much, for me, music is harder to do this list than the rest, because it's much more of a personal thing, I think, music, than games and films. You can say, oh yeah, this film is great because it looks technically great, oh, they've done the cameras. This game is great technically because they've done a great job on keeping everything tight with the graphics and frame rate and controls and all that. Music, you can to some extent say, oh, it's a technical masterpiece because of how tight the instruments are, but I think it's very much on what speaks to you. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. That's my list of top 5, let's just say top 5 media, I guess, throughout 2017. I'd love to know your guys' top 5s on some of these things and what you found to my list. It's not supposed to be an in-depth review of any of these, it's just a quick catch-up of really what my favourite thing has been about this year in terms of games, films, TV series. So yeah, a quick list rather than a full review. So thank you very much for watching. Leave your comments below on your favourite and what you think to my lists, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Thanks guys, bye bye.